Welcome to this live talk. My name is Edmar. This live talk is all about exploring leadership and entrepreneurship mindset. Property is probably the best investment of all time, and the self-accommodation is probably the cheapest and the quickest way to build cash flow in property investment. But self-accommodation strategy will survive this property challenge. So this interview, I'm talking with Dave. Dave, how are you today?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm good. I'm always good, especially when I'm talking to people who is going to add some value to what I'm doing, sharing good information.
Wow, so that's just set out a bar for me, right?
Okay, yeah.
Now I've got to make sure I do that, yeah?
Yeah, so there's some weight on your shoulder now. You have to do it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So as I understand this interview, as I understand property is one of the best investment you can make. But every business has up and down, and property market has some up and down, especially now with all this COVID and pandemic stuff. But self-accommodation is, before COVID, was one of the best strategy. But with COVID, how is the market? So that's what we're going to be talking. And if market is bad, how can we use your experience to help many people who's doing a property investment in self-accommodation to come out and survive? So before we jump into property, I just want to build some momentum, getting to know you before we start listening to what you have to tell us. So one of the first questions we always ask, because this program is all about mindset, is about leadership and entrepreneurship mindset. So there's one thing that all leaders and all entrepreneurs, all business, they have in very defined is they know what is success for them. So I ask the same question to you. For you, what takes success, and do you feel that you are successful?
What makes me feel successful, or do I feel that I'm successful?
Well, what makes you feel, and if you feel that you are successful.
Okay, right. So what makes me feel successful? Okay, so look, I think an entrepreneur really. Well, certainly for me, we're always striving for more success, right? So whenever you get to a certain level, you always want to do a bit more. But look, for me, success looks like being able to pull away and spend a bit more time with the family, being able to give my family what they need, and being able to look after my little girl. She's my why, my little girl is my why. So if I'm spending more time with my family and being able to give them everything that they need, that's success for me.
So I guess if I ask you what is important for you, like if you tell me 2 or 3 things that is very important for you, your daughter maybe will come one of them, or family. Am I right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, top of the list, I'd say. Daughter, family, my other half, Lucy. Yeah, definitely come top of the list. Along with, I like the nice things in life, nice house, cars, and everything else that goes with that. But the top one of the value ladders got to be the family, right? Well, there is for me, certainly.
Okay. Yes.
Give them what they need, what they want.
I believe many of us, we share same value, because our value is what drives us to what we want to achieve in life. And if you back whatever you want to do with your family, that's another thing. I believe if you have someone who is willing to run the same journey with you, it will be much easier for you to reach there. Because, for example, when I come home after a long journey, for example, one day I drove 3 hours to view property, and I went just by myself. And it was very dry journey. But when I go with my other half, it makes it like we're always talking, like we come with sometimes we agree, sometimes we don't, like we disagree. But it makes it like more interactive, both of us, when we are going together. And because both of us, we work in the same thing, it sounds like we just playing together. So when you say about your family, yes, it's always good to have family as one of the value. But let's not focus a lot in family, because this is not family counseling. This is a property business.
I don't know. We could turn it into family counseling if you want. We've done this before.
Yeah, so let's make this into as a family business property counseling. Yes.
Okay, let's do that.
Yeah. So before property investment, what did you do in like, what's your background?
Okay, so my background is in home improvement. So I work for a blue chip company, I suppose, one of the largest premier home improvement companies in the UK. And I started there when I was like 19 and worked my way up over 20 years to be an operations director for them. I did all sorts during my career and worked kind of, in from the bottom up. I started off as somebody used to book service engineers out. So if there's a problem at someone's property, I used to book them. And then I worked my way up through sales and operations to an operations director.
Okay, so you always been in a property industry, but not as a owner of the business or as a manager, but you always work for the company. Am I right?
Yeah, absolutely. So look, the home improvements company that I worked for, at one stage we used to kind of I used to run a conservatory pipeline, and basically you used to essentially build a house, but on the back of a house, not the full house, but it still had all the same principles of building a house from ground level up. And you used all the same trades. So, your groundwork, your bricky, your first fix, second fix, all the stuff that goes with it. So it all kind of tied quite well into the property industry, really.
Mm-hmm. So
I'm working with all those trades as well, and getting the relationships with the trades that I used to use on flip properties. I used to flip.
Okay. So from there, why and when you start into property investment?
Okay, so I worked for the home improvements company for 20 years, up to around 2 years ago. But I haven't just been in property for 2 years. I started about 9 years ago, doing it as a side hustle, I suppose you'd call it. And I started off buying and selling properties. So buying them, doing them up, and then flipping them. I'd call it now. Didn't call it that back then because I didn't know what flipping was. But so I did about 4 or 5 of those, and then moved into having a small buy-to-let portfolio, which we had in Chester. And then off the back of that, a couple of years ago, started the serviced accommodation business.
Mm-hmm. So then starting a service accommodation, just if you bring your experience to today's market, how much, like just idea or average, how much do you need to start a service accommodation? For example, a unit of a 3-bedroom.
How much money do you need to do that?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Well, it depends. Look, it depends on where it is. If you're starting out in serviced accommodation, you're going to need money for the deposit. You're going to need money for your first month's rent. You're going to need, and if it needs furnishing, you're going to need money to furnish it. It depends on the size of the property, but I'd say, if I was to have to put a figure on it, to start up, maybe £5,000 to £7,000, depending on where it is in the country.
Mm-hmm. So technically, by the figure, you could, instead of going for single let 15 to 25% of deposit, which come like as a 10 to 15,000, then you could have like 3 self accommodation, which could give you a 3 times of what one single let could give you, which is good. So
yeah, well, you make it sound very easy there. It's not quite that easy though. So look, there's ways and means, and there's strategies that you can kind of use other people's money. You can get investment. So the question is, how much money do you actually need to put in, or how much money do you need yourself? So I suppose there's 2 questions there. If you're going to put investment money into it and make money for somebody else and give them a return on their money, then you could do it with zero money. Of your own money, if you're using other people's. There's ways and means of kind of getting a serviced accommodation up and running quickly. and using things like lease finance for buying furniture and all sorts of different things that you can do that can reduce that number as well. So it's a relatively low entry point compared to most of the other, property strategies, if you like.
Okay. So in terms of yourself, you started with single let, then you moved to self-accommodation. So why did you move to self-accommodation?
So I started buying properties and flipping them and making a few quid out of them. And then I went into what I made from that, I bought some single let properties. Now look, I had 3 single lets in Chester. And you know what it's like for buy-to-let properties. They probably net a couple of £100 a month. If you have somebody who doesn't pay for a month, or a boiler goes on the property, it kind of wipes out most of your profit for the year. And I was getting pretty fed up of one of my tenants that I had in a property in Chester. It was a 3-bedroom townhouse, which I used to live in actually. I moved away and then I put a tenant in there for 3 years. The first 2.5 years, she was great. And then she lost her job and wasn't able to pay the bills. And it just got into a position where she owed me a load of money. And I thought, right, well, look, I'd been on a number of different property courses. I'd been getting educated in the car through Audible while I was driving on my long journeys when I was working away all the time. And I thought, right, I'm just going to have a stab at serviced accommodation because, this property is really kitted out for it well. It was a 3-story townhouse, centre of Chester, within the city walls. Chester had everything that you need for serviced accommodation to be successful. So I just kind of jumped into it and got on with it, really.
And that's how everything started. From then, you moved all your property, all your energy to self-accommodation.
Absolutely, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So under this, you move everything to self-accommodation. From then, everything was going okay. And with this COVID pandemic, everything, how is self-accommodation market for you?
So look, we kind of went from having the one property in Chester to growing very rapidly over a 10-month period. We took on like 12 properties, and they were all through mixed strategies. So they were, we owned some, we did rent to rents, and we managed other people's properties for them as well. And we were doing really well up until sort of COVID hit last year. We'd taken on around, I think it was about 20 properties by then, a bit less than that, maybe 18 to 20 properties. And we were flying, everything was going well. The market was becoming a little bit saturated at that point, but we were still getting really good prices per night. We were getting good net profit, etc., etc. And then, the Prime Minister comes on and tells us that, we've got to stop business and leisure. Well, from any serviced accommodation provider, they'll tell you that, all of their business comes from business clients and leisure clients because they're short-term stays. So you fill your week with corporate clients, and your weekends with leisure clients is the most profitable business you can get. You do also have like long-term clients and stuff as well, but and it was going really well up until COVID. Prime Minister comes on and tells us, right, you've got to stop leisure, you've got to stop business. So we're like, well, where do we go? What do we do? So business kind of over the first month or so really started dropping off. And then the online travel agents like your Airbnb and Booking.com, they all kind of shut their calendars as well. So it was literally over to us to create and get business in. Now, for us, we actually did quite well off the back of COVID. In terms of getting people into our properties, a lot of SA operators kind of left the market and handed properties back or changed them to ASTs or whatever. While everybody was running away from the fire, we were running towards it to try and put it out.
So one second. You said while everyone was running away from the the property, the service accommodation strategy, you are
Mhm.
going you're going inside the fire. You reminded me of Warren Buffett when he said, when everyone is getting panic, stress, and leaving, that's the time for you to dive into it. So
Absolutely.
so you are going into a strategy that market is balancing and everyone is running. So what did you do to stay stable in that market when you know everyone is running?
Do you know what, Eddie? That's a great question. I'm going to answer that right now. So what we did is so it's my job in the business to get sales, right, and to bring business in and fill our units. So when COVID hit in China and it went over to Spain and it was hit in Italy, and we could see that it was like going right throughout the world, and we started getting a few cases in the UK, I kind of started thinking to myself, right, this is coming, it's going to happen. What businesses are going to be thriving in these conditions, or what businesses are going to still be open and are still going to have to perform? So, firstly, what's going to be overrun? Now, the NHS was going to be overrun with patients and doctors and all sorts, and they were going to have to up their ante, and they were going to be so busy in these conditions, right? So what I did is I started making connections and speaking to local hospitals in our area and setting up really simple pricing strategies for them, because I knew, because my mother's an occupational health nurse, that they all have accommodation on their on their sites. So every large hospital has an accommodation sector, which is run by somebody called an accommodation officer. So I was contacting the accommodation officers and giving them really simple pricing plans and contacting them on a 48-hour basis and just speaking to them and saying, look, we know you're not overrun at the moment, but if something does happen and your accommodation becomes overrun, what would be your next step? And look, we became the next step, essentially. So we did that with the NHS, and we covered around about 50% of our properties with NHS staff, with a really simple pricing structure that they could use for their staff staying in them. So that was the first thing we did. There's another couple of things that we did as well. Do you want me to elaborate on that, or?
Oh yes, please, because the program is all about to help. Because as you said, many people are handing the property back, and almost everyone is running. Then if you're still going and still moving, then if you can share with us whatever you did, that would be very helpful. Because, for example, myself, I still need help to continue my business, and that the only reason I'm here because someone shared with me what they did. So the program is all about sharing what all of us we can get together. So if you can share with us, that would be very helpful.
Yeah, so look, there was four main kind of areas that we focused on, really. First of all, it was the NHS, which made contact with them, give them really simple pricing plans, and then also key workers. So we were looking in the area and thinking, right, well, what kind of businesses aren't going to be able to shut down during COVID, and who can we support because they're going to have more they're going to be thriving in this environment. So we called our hospitals, we looked at ambulance services, we looked at a lot of key workers, so people that were working in power plants, refineries, all things that weren't going to close down. And we started making contact with those types of people, and we got a lot of business from it, because we also knew that if we had a full-on lockdown, that hotels were going to get closed down. Serviced accommodation obviously didn't get closed down for key workers, but hotels did. So we were able to then pick up the business from hotels where key workers were staying, and we filled our properties with that as well. Now, we didn't get the prices that we would normally get through that period, but we had a really high occupancy rate in our properties, which helped us get through it and make a small profit. So look, they were the first. That was the first kind of thing that we did. Then the other things that we looked at, we're looking at our existing guest database. So who in our existing guest database were were key workers, and we recontacted them. One of them was a refinery in our area, so we housed them again. We also really worked hard on Facebook ads, target marketing on there, and built a customer avatar and targeted certain individuals, which worked really well and got us a bit of business through that. And then one of the main things, which was really, really simple, is once we had the people starting to come in to the key workers and the NHS staff coming into our properties, we did a really simple thing, just phone them up and ask them, do they know anybody else that's looking for accommodation? Because look, key workers know key workers, right? So that worked really well for us as well. We managed to get through COVID and what we call weather the storm, and come out of the back of it in actually a better position than when we entered it.
Okay, well, that's very good. I like that, because while many people are dying, some people are still running, which is good, because what makes you come on top is if you can keep up with the race. Because if you give up the race, then you would never experience the taste of end of the race. So, and one thing I noticed you did is you brought up creativity and innovation, which I believe creativity is the solution, and the innovation is the way to dominate whatever you want to dominate. So your property was going, and you had to create your way. Then you had some innovation, all of that, which is very good, because if you don't move, if you don't create a new strategy, you will die. Market is running. There is a lot of
simple Darwin, right?
Sorry,
adapt. You got to adapt. You've got to adapt, otherwise you die. Adapt. Is Darwin who said that? Adapt. Was it Darwin's theory? Adapting?
No. You have to adapt. Adapt.
Is it Darwin? Survival of the fittest. That's the one. If you don't adapt, then you'll die.
Yes,
I think that was Darwin. Don't quote me on that though. I might be wrong. I do get these things wrong sometimes.
But don't worry. This platform is all about sharing mindset ideas. So if we get it wrong, I believe some of our audience, they just type it and they send it to us. We're here to teach each other to grow together. Yes. That's good. Yes. If you don't adapt, the flexibility is the soul to everything. If you don't adapt to it, you will die. We know Nokia, they used to be the biggest in the market selling phones, and they did not adapt or didn't do anything. They just stayed there waiting, and they died. So if you don't want to go to the same way, you have to always adapting, because flexibility and adaptation is the soul of everything. Now you talked about competition. Competition is very strong in this area. So you attract NHS and the key worker and some of the clients you had. So were them for short term or long term booking?
Well, so we had a mixture. So look, one of the things that we really made clear to people through our Facebook advertising was that we were open, right? So we had a number of short-term people staying with us that were booking for weeks at a time, because there was such uncertainty through COVID that people didn't know whether their sites were going to be open or closed, or whether there was going to be any change on their sites. So people were always booking within a 7-day period or last minute. So we just made people understand that when we were open, and people could see that through our Facebook advertising. So we were getting the people that were, looking for 7-day, 2-day, whatever that might be. We were getting that business, but we were also booking long-term clients from the NHS. So we were taking bookings of a month in advance for the next month, for 2 months, for 3 months, just to get us through that period.
Okay. So now you came out of that, and you still getting good booking. So what is your advice for someone who wants to secure a long-term booking under this time?
So at this time, look, I think right now there's a lot of uncertainty in the market, with a lot of people who don't know what they don't know, right? So what you tend to find is people are, at the moment, you've got people that are in the environment where their business may get closed. They're not booking long term at the moment. They're doing what they were doing previously and just booking within a 7-day period. But we're getting really good prices because of that. And I'll take it back a step. So pre-COVID, the market was really was starting to get oversaturated with serviced accommodation, right? So when you've got a massive amount of supply in the market and the demand isn't, the demand stays the same, your price points drop because people drop to put people in their properties, right? What happened over COVID is a lot of people left the market. So we came out of the back of it in July, and demand actually increased a little because staycations came back. With the demand increasing and the supply decreasing because everybody had dropped out of the market, the price points for the properties all increased. So we had a really fantastic July, really fantastic August. The numbers that we were getting in August were fantastic. September, we've had really great numbers as well. But what we found in September compared to August is people are booking things last minute. So they're only booking like in 7 days in advance. So when you're using your pricing, you've got to make sure that your strategy works on a 7-day strategy. You don't just reduce because you're not going to get the same price that you would previously. Did I answer the question then?
Yes,
I'm not sure if I answered the question. Yeah, is that going along the right lines? So you mentioned how do you get longer term bookings and how would and the question was, how would you look to get longer term bookings? Well, do you know what? Sometimes it's not the best thing to do. You can a lot of the time get more value and more profit out of shorter term bookings. Long term bookings are great as a base, but the price per nights are not as good as what you get from a week stay or a 2-night stay over a weekend. So we like to have a mix in our portfolio of long term bookings and short term. To get long-term bookings, the best way to do that is to, again, build relationships in the area with local businesses, get set up with a couple of SA agencies, people like Situ or Silverdor or places like that do have the clientele that will come and book for a long period of time. Now, the only thing you've got to be mindful of there is that, you've got to pay them a commission, and the people that they're putting in want a deal because it's a longer period of time. But it's always good to have a mix of that in your business, right?
Okay. And you talked about the main audience you were targeting was from NHS and the care, and some people working, for example, refinery and a few other traders. But is it not a very small audience to fill all your property or everyone market? Because what I believe is everyone trying to target the same audience.
Well, you know what? People didn't target them at first. Remember, I targeted these types of workers and people before COVID came. So previously, there wasn't the market for the NHS because they were staying in their own accommodation. So we got in there early. So that market we kind of sewed up in the area because we'd done the deals before COVID had hit. So that was kind of like a given to us. So that was 50% of our properties. But the key workers, we didn't just work with refineries and power stations. We worked with other people as well. So we were looking at people were still shop fitting because they were still allowed to work. When construction started coming back, construction sites were opening up. We've got a lot of construction that goes on in our area, and we were housing people that were building houses or working on buildings nearby. So it wasn't just the power stations and power stations and refineries that we were working with. It was a number of different workers from key areas, from key workers. What we did is we went onto the government website. They've got a list of who are key workers. So we got the list of who the key workers were, and then we just started targeting all those different people.
So you target them from direct connection with them, and you also used Facebook advertisement. And there's some people, they say they still believe in old and traditional way leaflet. And there's some people, they go and they leave leaflet on the window of the van or trader outside of the construction or whatever they're working. What do you think? What do you think about all this strategy? And what for you? What's the best strategy to use?
A nice bit of guerrilla marketing, they call it, right? So guerrilla marketing is it's me and my business partner have different views on this. I quite like it because it puts you out there and you've got your face out there. I mean, for me, I would leaflet all the people that are staying in the travel lodges and the Premier Inns and stuff like that, because they're our target market for a lot of our properties. My business partner doesn't like that. We didn't actually do that, and we didn't need to do that through COVID because, well, look, where are you going to go and target if you've got a load of vans sat outside a travel lodge? During COVID, they weren't there. You could do that now because they've all opened back up. But during then, it wasn't really something that we did. But it does work. I mean, look, does guerrilla marketing work? Well, it's been around for years, and people build a lot of successful businesses off the back of it. But we tend to kind of stay clear of that. It doesn't really suit our brand. Would be the official line from my business partner, Chris.
Okay. Maybe one day we get your business partner to share with us, because marketing and advertisement is two strategies that help all business to grow. If you don't have a good marketing, if you don't have good advertisement, maybe you will be struggling to sell unless the business go back to Stone Age.
Yeah.
But still,
one of the really key elements for this was having a good website that's set up, that's got good SEO and good sales funnels that direct people to the website. That's really key. That's something that, again, we've been working on.
Mm-hmm. So advertisement strategy you did, how you target clients. So we're talking about all the good side of business, how to attract, but because everything got two sides, there's a good and there's bad side. So you have to avoid them. Like, they're going to happen, you have to be ready for them, or you can avoid them. So when, for example, if someone has to start a self-accommodation, not start a COVID, we don't need COVID again. Everyone starting a self-accommodation, what are the mistakes or common mistake they should avoid or they should prepare when they start a self-accommodation?
Right, that's a really great question, right? So look, one of the major things that people do when they first start in serviced accommodation is they don't analyze the deals properly. So they don't look for the right things and use the right tools to make sure that a property is going to give them the right net income on a deal, right? And that's the number one thing that I see all the time. And I see stuff that comes from sources. I see people just, licking their finger and thinking that a place will work. And in reality, it doesn't. So that's the number one thing, is making sure that you're finding the right serviced accommodation area.
So the area is the first and the main point is the area. So because if you find a good area, probably the rate will be good, and that the property, if you find a good property, you do some renovation, then it will be fantastic. I heard from another self-accommodation. He was talking about using the strategy of 3.5 for the property and 1.5 for the profit. So you get, like, for example, 5-bedroom. You should look for 3.5 from the three bedroom and 3.5 from the property to pay for the property cost, and the 1.5 bedroom, the price of 1.5 bedroom should go to your profit. I don't know if you heard about this.
So look, I'm gonna talk you through 4 main cost areas, right? That you need to be, or 4 main areas that you need to be looking at. And look, we've actually got we do a course on this. It's a half-day course that we teach, because we've got a training company as well. It's called Find Your SA Area. But in that, we teach people how to find the area, what tools to use online, and what type of costs you need to be involved. And we also give them a tried and tested deal analyzer that we've built. But here's 4 things that you need to make sure that you've got absolutely nailed on within your serviced accommodation area to make sure that it's successful and you're getting the right net income, right? So number 1 is your fixed costs. You need to understand how much that property is going to cost you before you even put a client in there. So things like the rent, the utility bills, the council tax, or if it's on business rates, whatever that might be, broadband, how much your leasing finance is going to cost you for your furniture if you're going to do that, and all those other things that go with it. So that's number 1, the fixed costs. You need to understand what that property is going to cost you without anybody in it. The second thing you need to understand is your operational costs. Now, when I say operational costs, these are the things that move up and down. So costs that can vary with the property, and they are things like cleans. So how much is your clean going to cost if they're doing it on a weekly, bi-weekly basis or whatever, every time somebody moves in or out of that property? How much is your linen going to cost you? How much are you going to get charged by your management company to manage that property for you? Or how much you're going to get charged by the online travel agent like Airbnb or Booking.com to get that property, and how much revenue they're going to take as a percentage. So that's number 2, right? Number 3.
Oh, sorry, number 3.
Yeah, so number 3 is you've got to work out what the occupancy rates are in that area at granular level. Now, and I don't mean look at an overview. A lot of people, what they do when they're picking their serviced accommodation units is they get an average for the UK or for a large area, and they stick the occupancy rate on that. It's the wrong thing to do. And I'll tell you the reason that's wrong is because when you're looking at occupancy rates, you can find that in an area, one street works, the next street doesn't. Okay. And the reason for that is that, it could be a little bit too far out of the city and it just drops off a cliff. And you can see it when you start doing analysis on properties that it does that. So occupancy is really, really key. And you can pick that up from software like AirDNA. There's certain ways you need to use it and work with it, but you can pick that up from a piece of software called AirDNA. And then the last thing you need to be thinking about, which is number 4, is the price per night, or the average daily rate for that property, and work out exactly how much you can get per night. And once you've got all those 4 costs and you can tie them all together and put them in a deal analyzer, that's when you're going to be able to work out whether a property is worth taking on and what net income you can get. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. And if you apply those 4 strategies right, then you should be successful, or you should minimize the risk in your service accommodation investment.
Absolutely.
So talking about that's one thing that we also have to, because you said you offer training. So if anyone watching or anyone wants to approach to your training, so can you talk to me a little bit more about your training?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So that we've got a training business called Iconic with a K, Iconic Training Academy. And we do a number of different courses. We've got an SA mastermind that we run on a bi-monthly basis. So every second month, we do an SA mastermind. And we pick up topics on that. It's a bit of networking with our mentees that we have. And also we have an Ask Us Anything from Chris and I. We've also got a Find Your SA Area course that we've just discussed here, which teaches you how to, 1, find the right area for SA, the right properties, the right criteria in those properties, what size bed, how many bed configurations, all that sort of stuff. We then show you how to work out all those 4 things that we've just been through. We give you a deal analyzer to pull it all together and work out what the net income are on those properties. We also do a systemization course. Our business is very systemized. So everything within our system has got a process and a system, what am I talking about here? It's got a process and it's all systemized. So we've got a course that we do on that. We've also got a 6-month mentoring course. So for anybody at whatever level they're at, whether they're looking to get into SA or whether they've got a few units on board and they're just looking to grow and scale, we do a 6-month mentoring course as well. So we've got a number of different things that go go on within that. Our Facebook page is Iconic Training Academy, so if you want to go on there, everything's on there.
Okay. Yes, because one of the things I was going to ask you after the training is the follow-up, because I've been to training, and I know many people have been to training for 1 day or 1 week or 3 days. There's too many information to take on. But one thing is getting information, obviously practicality, and many people, you don't have like mentoring after that. So I was going to ask you if you offer anything after the training, but you just said you offer mentoring, which is good.
Yeah.
Yes.
And one of the main things that we always say to people in property or in business or whatever you're doing in your business career is, look, you don't have to pay for training. You can go out and you can get educated online. You can go out and get educated through books. You can go out and do whatever you want, but that is a really long process. If you network with people that are in the industry and you can get knowledge from them, it just makes that transition so much quicker. If you can also get onto mentoring from people that are doing it within the area of business that you want to get into, that's just going to scale and grow your business so much quicker than what you would do if you were just going to learn it all yourself. Is that a valid point, or
is
that what you were kind of getting at?
Yes, it is valid point, because I believe that the mindset that brought me to this place where I am, it will be hard to take me far. Then if I needed to go far, I needed to go with someone who has different mindset. So the process of learning, we have to get learning from somewhere. For example, you can read a book and you might understand it in one way because someone writing it. But when you watch someone doing it and when they do together with you, it's completely different. Some people, for example, I know people who, it does not matter how much you talk to them, does not matter how much you tell them to read. If you don't do together with them, they're not going to get it. So
absolutely,
the best thing is for you to know your learning style, know what you want. But I always advocate get a mentor, because it's working for me. Then I can only talk from experience, and it's from everywhere. Even like I had this. My mom always quoting this for me. She was always telling me, like, there's African proverb says, if you want to go quick, you go alone, but if you're going to go far, you go with someone. Then, because business investment is what you're taking. For example, when talking about property, for me, I'm not doing just for me. For me, property is a generation investment, because you can leave it to your kids, to your grandkids, so that it can pass wealth in generation. So if something that is not going to be here for like 2 days or 10 days, better you do it well. Because I met this man, and he told, like, that's what he was telling me. I'm quoting him. He said, I when I was 18, I was a millionaire. Then I said, what are you talking about? Then he was telling me his granddad came to England and they bought like 6 houses in London, where center of London. Then his granddad had only his dad, and his dad had him and his sister. His sister passed away when she was 17, and he was the only one. So everything from the property came from granddad to dad, and then now to him. So, but if his granddad messed up in the beginning, he wouldn't get anything now. So that's the same ladder of the business. So if you have to do something you're going to pass to next generation, you have to do it well. So
absolutely,
that's how it is. I like it. And you talked about everything you can do to help do well in self-accommodation. So one of my last questions to you is, based on your experience with how market is doing, do you feel that self-accommodation still a thing, still a good strategy to invest right now?
The short answer to that is absolutely. So look, let's just recap on some of the things that we talked about before. So we had a mass exodus of SA operators from the market during COVID. That hasn't recovered. It hasn't recovered. And the reason why it hasn't recovered to the levels that it was before is because people are still scared. There's still a lot of uncertainty around the UK, right? around leisure and holidays and whatever that might be. Now, we've seen a huge uplift in our business because, again, we did the opposite to what most people were doing in serviced accommodation. We've taken a number of mentees on who've taken on properties, and they've been following what we've been telling them to do, and they've made massive profits off the back of what we've taught them to do. Okay, so right now is a great time to invest in serviced accommodation. Okay, if you've got the right property at the right criteria, and you can do all the things that we've been talking about on this call, then of course it's the right time to invest in serviced accommodation.
Okay, that's fantastic. So there is no need for you to complain about not being able to create a ways to have whatever you want if you're looking to start in property investment, because serviced accommodation is maybe the cheapest and the quickest way to get in property. But the secret is, if you know what you know, or if you don't know what you know, get together with someone, for example, Dave, who can help you to get into property. So Dave, thanks for your time. But our last question is, from everything you told us, do you still have any advice you want to give to anyone getting into property?
So anyone getting into property, yeah. Any advice? I'm not sure if it's advice, but more guidance, I suppose. So look, if you're going to be getting into any sort of property strategy, the main thing that people do is procrastinate, right? They think too much, and they think about getting into something, and then they don't do it, and they move on to something else. My advice would be stop procrastinating, get it done, get educated, and get networking with people that are doing what you're doing and learn from them. And also, if you can afford it, get a mentorship, because if you can get mentored by people that are doing what you want to do, and you can rub shoulders with people that are doing what you want to do, then that's going to make you successful. Mm-hmm. Look, I do I get mentored? Absolutely. I have a mentor, and he's quite a famous person in the property market. And why did I pay for his mentorship? Because I want to be in the place that he wants to be. He's miles ahead of me at the moment, and I want to get there. So that's exactly what I do. So I practice what I preach.
Wow, that's one of the things that most of us in universe we have to learn to do: practice what we preach, because we are a result of what we do every day, not what we speak. Because we can speak, I'm good, I can do, but if you don't put action into it, it's pointless. Even if you have information, but if you don't have a practice, it's pointless. So Dave, thanks for your time. Thanks for all the information you gave us based in your experience. Self-accommodation is still a good option to go, but you have to know what you know, or you have to know what you needed to know. If you don't know it, there's always someone out there to get it. Thanks for your time. Continue doing the good work you do, adding information, because I'm always watching in your page. So always remember, whatever you're posting, remember Edmar is in your back watching you. Yeah.
I'll remember that, buddy. Thank you very much.
Yes. So continue having good Wednesday, and see you maybe in the future when we bring you back to our program.
Perfect. Let's do that.
Okay. Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Well, thanks for your time. Thanks for joining us and watching with us. Today we were talking about ways to survive under this market challenge. So we had a Dave. He's well known in service accommodation with a lot of experience, has his own academy, shared with us a lot of information. But if you want to get deeper into everything he just gave us, you have to contact him with all the information. We will be leaving the link here in the video comment for you to get in touch with him. As we said in the beginning, property is probably the best investment, the best business you can get in. And self-accommodation is the quickest and the cheapest way to get into property. So you have all the information. Now you have to try. If you don't try it, you will never know it. Thanks for being part of the program. We look forward to come back Sunday with Portuguese program. If you don't speak Portuguese, great opportunity for you to learn Portuguese. If you speak Portuguese, be our guest on Sunday, and all be back to us on Wednesday, 2 p.m. or 6 p.m. again. Bye-bye, and see you next week.